Welcome to Lesson 131, Understanding Integers. Today we're going to talk about how to identify integers, how to identify opposites, and how to use integers to represent real-world situations. Alright, so first we have to know what an integer is. An integer is, by definition, is a set of all whole numbers, their opposites, and 0. So your whole numbers, the numbers that we count with, so 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth, those are all considered integers, and then their opposites, the numbers that are on the opposite side of 0 as they are. So all of your negative numbers are considered to be integers. Now the thing is, they do not have decimals or fractions with them. So integers are just like whole numbers where it's just the number and nothing else. Right, so in real-world situations, we use integers a lot. We actually use integers when we talk about spending and earning money. So spending money would be a negative, earning money would be a positive. With golf, we talk about over and under par. So if you shoot a negative 10, you shot 10 under par. Temperature, we talk about above 0 or below 0. So we talk about negative temperatures and positive temperatures. So the warmer it is, the either closer to positive it is or higher up on the positive side of 0 it is. And in football, we talk about a loss and gain of yards. So a loss of yards would be a negative, and a gain of yards would be positive. And then we talk about above and below sea level. So when we talk about Denver being the mile-high city, that's because it is 1 mile higher than sea level. So it is positive 5,280 miles above sea level. Whereas if it were below sea level, it would have been a negative. Right, so we talked about what is an integer and what makes it different from a whole number. So if we look at integers and whole numbers, I want you to take a minute, think about what you know about integers and whole numbers, pause, and I want you to place these numbers down here in the Venn diagram where you think they should go. When you come back, we'll go over your answer. Alright, so what you should have found is that all of your positive numbers fit into both categories except for 0. 0 is not a whole number. 0 is only considered an integer. So in this case, there would be nothing ever that would be just a whole number because every single whole number is also an integer. Okay? The difference here is that integers can be positive or negative, whereas whole numbers can only be positive. So since integers can be positive and whole numbers are positive, all whole numbers are integers. The only thing here is that integers can be negative, so your negatives would all only fit in this category. Integers can't be fractions or decimals, and whole numbers can't be negative, fractions, or decimals. So there's really just that whole negative part that differentiates between a whole number and an integer. Right, so using positive and negative in everyday life. So if we're talking about temperature, when we're talking about temperatures in the US, the highest recorded was 134 degrees Fahrenheit. So we don't typically say 134 degrees above 0. If there is nothing in there that says below 0, we know that it is a positive number. So whenever we get on this side of the 0, on the positive side, we know that it's a positive number, and we just write the number itself and its label. We do not put a plus sign in front of it. A plus sign is an addition sign. We don't use it to identify positive numbers. Positive numbers are considered to be positive without anything in front of them. But now if I have 80 degrees below 0 that they recorded in Alaska, because it's below 0, below tells me that it should be negative, and it's a negative 80 because that's the number we're working with, and it's degrees Fahrenheit, so you still can use your label, but now we use a negative symbol in order to show that it was below 0, that it was very cold. Right, when working with money, Again, anytime you earn money, it's considered a positive, and anytime you spend money, it's considered a negative. So you want to look for the key terms here. So I'll look with you at the key terms. We have earn, credit, and won. And we also have owe, spent, and debit. I want you to take a minute and try to write down the integers that would go with these situations. Okay, you have this right here in your notes. You should already have this filled out from before. And I want you to, on these lines, write down what integer represents each situation. So if I didn't have the words and just had numbers, what would I put down? Go ahead and pause, and when you come back, we'll go over your answers. So because you earned $20, it's a positive $20. So we don't need any symbol in front of it. However, since you owe $13, it's coming out of your pocket, so it's a negative, but it is still $13, so it's a negative $13. Credit means that money is going into your bank account or is coming to you. So a credit is a positive number, so this would just be written as $50. So even though we don't know the situation, we know that this money is going into our pocket, and we know that this money is going out of our pocket. Okay, if I spent $30 at a Brewer game, again, it's leaving me, so it's a negative. But the number stays the same. It's still just a negative $30. Right, and if I won $2, again, that's money that's coming to me, so that's just a positive $2. And a debit means that it's taken out of your account. So if you have a debit card, you can use it to take money out of your account. So it would be a negative, and because you're taking $200 out, it is a negative $200. Relating this back to football, again, when you're talking about the situations, you're talking about a positive or a negative set of yards. So in this situation, you get 4 chances to get 10 yards. If you move up from where you start, you have a positive gain of yards. If the quarterback is sacked behind where you started, or you fumble and it goes back, it's a negative. So even though you really don't hear it like that on TV, when they're saying a loss of 30 yards, it is a negative 30 yards. So when they're taking stats, that's what they're putting down. All right, so here I want you to use this situation, and I want you to do the following. So in your notes, you have it written right here. I want you to write down, there's 4 different situations. I want you to list the situations and what integers represent each situation. When you come back, we'll go over your answers. All right, so for the first one, we have that the K-Splits are on their own 26-yard line, so that's where we start. The quarterback completed a pass for a gain of 14 yards. If it's a gain of 14 yards, it is a positive. So your situation would be that they started on the 26-yard line, that they gained 14 yards, and then a running play resulted in a loss of 5 yards, and then the next play they gained 7 yards. Okay. Now, we don't have to consider this as one of our situations. That just tells us where we started. So we can use this last situation. We had a loss of 2 yards for our 4th situation. So down here, and you can get as specific as you want, you can say that there was a pass for a gain of 14 yards. So in this case, the integer would just be 14, but we still need to have a label, so 14 yards. The second situation would have been a running play that resulted in a loss.
Would the following students please come to the office? Leela,
And that loss was 5 yards.
David Torres, Devin Haraway, and Skylan Borak.
So it would be a negative 5 yards. Right, so the next one would be a gain of 7 yards with 7 just as your integer. And then the last one would be a loss of 2 yards with -2 as your integer. Okay, so you should have 14, -5, 7, and -2. I'll get them to you later. All right, so integers that are opposites are the same distance from 0. So the opposite of climbing 3 steps is going down 3 steps. To have a specific definition of this, opposites are two numbers that are the same distance from 0 on a number line, but in opposite directions. So -9 and 9 would be opposites. And 8 and -8 would be opposites. So if you're looking at a number line, I'll go back to that last page. So if you're looking at a number line, if I'm at a +1, I am 1 spot away from 0. So the same distance away from 0 but the opposite direction would be a -1. Okay, so what is the opposite of 1? We said the opposite of 1 is -1. So what is the opposite of -4? So if I'm 1, 2, 3, 4 spots away, 1, 2, 3, 4 from 0, then I have to go 4 spaces the other way. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the opposite of -4 would be a +4. So I want you to take a minute and I want you to try to find the opposites of all of these numbers. When you come back, we'll go over your answer. All right, so what you should have gotten for all of these is 9, -10, -45, 89, 121, and -67. So really all you're doing is you're looking at your number and seeing, is it positive or is it negative? If it's negative, then my answer has to be positive. If it's positive, then my answer has to be negative, but it's the same number every time. All right, so then we're going to try this. So what we're going to do is we're going to plot the number in red on the number line, and then we're going to plot its opposite in green on the number line. So you are going to need a colored pencil. So first we look and we find 8. So 8 is here on the number line. So we plotted that in red, and I apologize, mine's a little bit more pink. There we go. Now the opposite of 8 is a -8. Because I'm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 places away from 0. So the opposite of 8 would have to be a -8 because that is 8 places away from 0 in the opposite direction. I want you to go ahead and pause and try the next two, and when you come back, we'll go over your answers. All right, so for -2, your red dot should be on a -2, and your green dot should be on a +2. All right, so for the next one, your red dot should be on 5, and your green dot should be on -5, because the opposite of 5 is -5. All right, so what I want you to do on Edmodo, you are going to have a Edmodo quiz, and I want you to look at the situations, and I want you to tell me how you would write the following situations as an integer, and then I also want you to identify what the opposite of that integer would be. As always, if you have any questions, please make sure to post them on Edmodo so we can go over them in class tomorrow.